What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. I'm really happy you are here on this Sunday, December 18th of 2022. For any astute listeners, you will know that this is much later than we record, and there's a reason. For once, it's not because me and David fucked up and got really lazy, because usually that's why. We get lazy, we do something stupid, we didn't feel like recording, days and days and days, oh, finally, let's make a show. No, this one is a special reasoning, and we'll get to that. Before we do, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials at The Alex Cuesta Show. Dave, do you have anything to say that's usually of non-importance before we get going?
No, actually, I do not. Not this time, at least.
So the reason why today's special, because we have our first ever guest from across the pond. And from anyone that knows kind of logistically getting that together, you have to know the difference in time zones. And I sure as hell don't. Google machine, as terrible as Google is as an organization, doing things like trying to figure out, like, so what is it if it's this time here in New York and it's there over in, Great Britain, like whatever it is. It helped us out here because we were able to organize this, and we are pumped to have Lord Miles Routledge on the show. Did I say your last name correct?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Most people don't. You got it spot on, mate. Thank you so much for having me on.
I got lucky. And I will say, listening to your interview with Callum definitely helped there. I cheated 100% because you talked about how you announced your name there. So I'm not going to take any of the credit. So Lord Miles, first, tell us about yourself. Who are you? Because I usually give a synopsis, but you're a friggin' badass dude. So tell me about yourself a little bit.
Thank you. Firstly, in summary, I guess I'm retarded, but in a good way, that people like to see. So I go to the most dangerous place in the world, and just for fun, really, for a holiday. So I was most well known originally during the fall of Kabul. So I went there genuinely for a holiday in Afghanistan. Then the Taliban took over the country. I was stuck there and I started taking pictures with the SAS soldiers and also the Taliban special forces goofing off. Went to the front lines of Ukraine. I'm going to Ukraine in a few days again. I'm also, I went to South Sudan. I went to the protests in Kazakhstan by sneaking into the country. I've broken every single immigration law in Schengen, jumped multiple borders, got banned from Schengen, and a million other things. And I will not stop. And one day they will find me and put me in prison.
So most recently I saw on Twitter, just for fun, you spent 4 hours in Spain just because you weren't allowed to. You had a minor change in your passport, and apparently the EU is not good with minor changes since everything's done by robots. They're just like, oh, this isn't the same passport. Let's let him go. So that was fantastic. So one thing about you is, I was thinking about it and I'm like, what am I going to say about Miles? Because obviously he's done some badass things, but what I found is you're kind of the guy, as most guys growing up, and I guess, I had to say the equivalency, some women too, no, fuck that. Most guys growing up kind of always dream about, being that great explorer, right? Like, we want to be firemen, we want to be policemen, we want to, save a hot girl from a burning building and then, have a sweeper away and things happen. But those all happen. But another thing is, we want to sit there and just be that adventurer and just go on and say, screw it. I'm going to go to dangerous places and I'm going to live my life and have adrenaline rushes. But a lot of us are pansies. A lot of us don't have the balls to do it. We settle down. We have families. We have jobs we don't want to lose. But then comes along a dude like you and it's like, all right, let's live vicariously through this guy now. Like, how does it feel like you're kind of doing what a lot of people, especially dudes, kind of, maybe not now because there's a bunch of soy boys, but dudes back in the day wanted to do, where it's like, that place has bombs going off. Let me just go walk through it for fun. Like, that's what you're doing. It's insane.
Oh, no, I haven't been to Detroit. Not joking.
No one should go to Detroit.
Oh, exactly. I do have my limits. Yeah, some people go to me and go, wow, it's crazy what you're doing. You're really living free. It's amazing. You have the courage to do this stuff. And I just start sweating internally. My brain just shouts, wow, they're just saying you don't have common sense. But taking it as courage, not like some retardation or something. I don't think I've got a sense of self-preservation, but at the same time, I've really grown into the role. I recall going to South Sudan, and it was straight after the Taliban takeover. I had all that backing and support from the people online. And I was like sweating in my seat thinking, I'm about to land in this crap hole nation and explore it. I really don't know what I'm doing. I can't believe I've jumped down this rabbit hole. And now it's like, oh yeah, I almost got shot again. Yeah. I think I've just I don't know, mentally fortify myself into the character that I want to be. I just really laughed, basically, and it worked.
Yeah, and I feel like you do have this certain type of charisma that just seems to work on a lot of people. Like the story that you have of when the Taliban like saw you and then you told them, wait, I'm from Wales. We hate the English too. They're like, that's
One
cool.
struggle. One struggle.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, that's cool. You can go. Like,
I don't know. I like the story even better. Hold on, Dave. When you're too tired to give a shit and you're just walking across the caravan of Taliban, going to take Kabul airport, and you just thumbs up them like, yeah, man, I'm going across. Leave me alone. And then the guys in the back, you thumbs down them, and they just all laugh at you. They like.
They're just looking at me like this goofy white boy. We could just shoot him right now. But he has a very cute smile. And the others were like, wow, this guy here gave us a thumbs down that takes balls. I guess. Gotta go respect it. Because I don't know, it feels like I delayed the Taliban advancement and takeover of Kabul airport by like 5 seconds.
You did more than the Biden administration.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I think they made it happen in the first place. You know. Oh, it was a big thrill, and I went back a few months later and just saw the Taliban and met them and shook their hands and took a few selfies. You know, those guys are all right. I've got to admit, they're not too bad. Not too bad.
Sorry, Dave. I jumped into your thought. Finish your thought.
No, it's fine. That was basically it. It's just like a distinct sort of charisma, and just I don't even know if it's quick thinking or you're just throwing whatever you want out there, but it seems to work on a lot of people for a specific reason, because you're not showing that you're a threat. Like you're showing that you're just out there. Like you're just exploring. You're not trying to do anything. Like.
Thank you. No, I feel like if you give some people some respect and you make a very odd joke, you give them a nice smile, sometimes you play on some of their wording and stuff, reflect it back upon them. Because if it's a life and death situation, you could be a little bit cheeky and pull some strings, I guess. But it really does work. Or maybe I just like have a nice smile. I'm not too sure.
So you have a book out, Lord Miles in Afghanistan. It kind of talks about your first time going, into Afghanistan, into Taliban territory, and to do, and you have it right there, and to, kind of talk about all your things that went on there. Give us a general synopsis of the book. And you mentioned, Afghanistan and Taliban a few times. Kind of go into, your adventures going in there. I know you went back with Callum, right? He went back with you, and that was, trials and tribulations going on there. Talk about the synopsis of your book and how you feel about, Afghanistan, the people, Taliban. Give us a little bit of a rundown there.
Thank you. Yeah. So the opening of my book is me describing the COVID situation that we're all too familiar with. Every country for about 1 year was closed down. You couldn't go on holiday. And of course, I really wanted to go on holiday. And the only country that was open up without any COVID restrictions, without a vaccine mandate, was Afghanistan. So it talks through my genius logic of just wanting to go on a holiday, just to screw over the system. Yeah, exactly. And then I decided, let's go to the embassy. And of course, the embassy just laughs at me. But, somehow I pull my strings, get a visa for Afghanistan. I talk through the thought process, the flights, what it's actually like getting there, what the Taliban were like in rumor before it actually went down, and just generally what it was like in Afghanistan a few days before the takeover. It even has pictures. That's good for me because I can't read. All right, apparently.
Everyone likes a picture book. Everyone likes a picture book.
Yeah, they won't let me do a pop-up book. So annoying. Yeah, it's like Taliban boom.
With the
grenade. A real grenade flies out the first time you open it.
Just give your grandfather PTSD or something. And it just talks about my tour guide, what I saw there, and then the takeover of Kabul, how he was actually notified the average person, and from there, basically, and how I posted everything on 4chan, and just the small details that the media got wrong. Actually, the big details, because the media always lies. I think we know that.
Yes. Yep.
Apart from this podcast, this is the good media. And then,
Thank you.
And it just shows me getting goofier and goofier with photo evidence. And eventually concludes saying, Miles got out of Afghanistan somehow, but also he went back for some reason and met the Taliban. Here's a selfie with them. Maybe another book one day. The end.
That works.
So do you think that part of it plays in? Because you talk about how, David mentioned your charisma and everything. Do you think at points like, you mentioned a lot in a lot of ways, like, when you're going to these types of places, in a serious note, you go to these types of places, you're going
Yes.
to deal with people because you're acknowledging that, the people of the Taliban, all these, they have kind of stigmas on them, but in the end, you believe that they're still just people. Does part of this go in? Do you think some of them are just thinking, this guy's absolutely insane? And, he's willing to come here. Like, he knows we hate Westerners. He knows, but he's just walking in here like just fine. Like nobody's business. Like, he owns the country. Do you think part of that has to play with it? Like, they kind of, you don't look like a violent dude. You look fairly unassuming. You've sent me some pictures with you in an AK. I would feel like it might blow your shoulder off. Like, you don't look like a big dude. Like, neither am I, but you look a lot less threatening, I think, than I do. I think people would walk to the other side of the street when they see me. With you, they're going to ask you for $5. Like, you look like a really nice guy. But do you think some of that goes, they're looking at you going, this guy's nuts. I just don't even want to test him. Like, I have the suicide vest on, but I feel like he'd pull it for me. Like, you think part of that is kind of what goes in their thinking and why you get away with things? People might just think you're a little crazy.
I think so, yeah. Sometimes you gotta be a little bit whimsical and harmless, and people just kind of like that. I think like a capybara to some degree, right? I don't know. I think if the Taliban have just gone through 20 years of war and the guy has seen 50 of his men just die or something, and he's the only one left, and I just waltz up, reminding him of the man who bombed his brother or something, and just start shaking his hand forcefully, just smiling at him and asking him to sign my book or something. I don't think they can say no. I think it's just sheer confidence sometimes that really does work. You can just walk up to anyone besides ISIS, which I do plan to do if I run into them again, and just start speaking to them. And I guess they're just like, wow, this isn't going to happen again. I might as well roll with it. Why not? We haven't got a reason to kill him just yet. Maybe he'll give us a chance.
So on Twitter, you were recently just added to the infidels that are all right group by members of the Taliban, which is pretty insane.
That's a compliment. That's an achievement right there.
That's a huge compliment from, people who are very, very tight knit. I feel like there might be like 16 people probably in that group of infidels who are all right. But talk about how you feel about Afghanistan, because you speak about them. I feel like many Westerners, what we know about the Middle East, what we know about Afghanistan, especially people mine and David's age, is 9/11, is going through the war on terror for most of our lives, is seeing a lot of strife and things that go on there. And me, I'm a history major, so I know a lot of the issues in the Middle East is Western caused, but at the same time, there's a lot of danger going on there. Talk about Afghanistan a little. What do you feel? Do they get a bad rap in the West because of all we know about is wars that have went on, especially between Britain and America and things going on in the Middle East? Talk about it a little. How do you feel about them?
Yeah, so I feel like when most people hear the word Afghanistan, they just go, oh, and then, just back off from there. But it used to be a really popular... Someone overheard that. It used to be a really popular tourism country in the 1970s before everything went down the poo. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, I think it's going to regain that. So, sorry, I'm in a hotel with some people are being weird. Yeah. I think I'm in a crack house, guys. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Who knows where in the United States is Lord Miles? That should be like, not where in time is Carmen Sandiego? Which death trap is Lord Miles in today? That should be the game we play.
So true. But honestly, so when you meet the Taliban, most of the time they're just guys that aren't too deep into the whole philosophy of the war. They just go, oh, foreigners came to our land, we fought them off, we won, hooray. Yeah. And I think the whole thing that happened with 9/11 was linked back more to Saudi, and then Osama bin Laden fled to Afghanistan just because he knew no one could find them, and no one really understood who he was, so he was able to get around there. I mean, he fled to Pakistan, but no one realized it, so it was just kind of a really tough thing to keep a track of as an American. And you just think, oh, we invaded Afghanistan, should be really bad. It's not the perfect country. The Taliban went from really terrible people 40-something years ago, where they would execute you if your pubic hair wasn't long enough when they randomly measured it. And if you listen to the radio, they would just straight up kill you. But nowadays they're on TikTok just goofing off. So
That's wild.
I think in 40 years, they've basically had the civil rights equivalent of a movement that went on. They've just done some really good stuff, and they would be really kind if you talk to them and just ask them to sign a book or just take a selfie or something. They're usually just bros, like it's just lads that are trying to goof off, like all of us really at the end of the day.
It's got to be bizarre to hear. Like, it is bizarre to hear. Just like coming from a person who, I try not to judge many people, but it is tough being over here in America, in New York. And it's like, we kind of all like, suck it until proven otherwise. Like, that's kind of how I feel, where you go into a completely different of like, I'm going to think that you're a decent person until proven otherwise. Now, you are a very religious individual. You are a devout Catholic, right? Am I correct?
Oh, yes, man.
You're a devout Catholic, and that has a lot to play with your worldview. And there's a difference between being a practicing devout Catholic and just being a Catholic. Like, your worldview is legitimate Catholicism of, turn the other cheek, love thy neighbor, and you're actually practicing and preaching it when you're going into these areas and when you're going and doing these types of things. So, does being religious, does having kind of the mission in your heart of trying to spread good go into why you want to go into all these war-torn and dangerous places and kind of not spread the word of God, but just spread happiness and goodness?
I think so, yeah. So when I go to these places, I always have a charitable aspect where I'll give some money away if I've got some spare. So I haven't profited from these travels so far. I've always broken even, which is intentional. And I just...
That's amazing.
Thank you. And I just give away the money to some degree to some nice people on the street. You see a child and you get them a bucket of KFC equivalent in Afghanistan, and their face lights up. It's amazing to see. So I'm like, well, if I can do a little bit of good in these places, why not? No one else is going to. I'm not going to trust the UN or the World Food Program to do anything. Might as well do it through the word of God.
Probably do more than them at this point. And net good.
Yeah. And I do have a weird story to tell. So when I rocked up to the Taliban, I got dared to basically say shalom to them. So I went one step further and said shalom, my niggers. And they looked at me and actually smiled, and they think they misunderstood like how to pronounce Shalom Aleichem. And I didn't understand my niggas bit, but what? So I just rolled with it. I should have filmed it. I'm going to do it again next time I go back. But I was like, shalom, my niggas, my tally bros,
Oh, man.
And they were like, oh, hello, sir. They were just shaking my hands, really chill.
My God.
And they were like, oh, are you Muslim? I was like, no, I'm Catholic. And they were like, oh, cringe. They didn't say cringe, but they were thinking it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, you love Jesus too as well, because he's a prophet in their religion. So we kind of bonded over a mutual understanding of Jesus. I was like, yeah, he's a good dude, isn't he? And they're like, yeah, he's good. so we found some common ground there, and they respect Mary too. She's the only woman mentioned in the Quran, apparently. So I was like,
the highest woman in the religion.
Exactly, yeah. So I was like, that Mary chick, pretty lovely, isn't she? They're like, yeah. But we did all formal, and I think they kind of started smiling around then. And then now I'm added to one of their group chats. They're quite lovely.
So, I was actually going to ask you that because I know a little bit about, the religion of Islam. And I think Islam gets a very bad rap because a lot of the places are living by one part of the Quran, the Muhammad the warrior, which has the Sharia law aspect in it. And, they're not living by the rest of the Quran, which, is obviously a problem because Muhammad the warrior is very violent, very, it's not a good part, but the Quran is not all that. And you mentioned how Jesus is essentially number 2 in their whole entire religion. Muhammad's the highest, but Jesus is basically the second highest prophet. He's just not Muhammad. And Mary is the only woman and the highest woman in their religion. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. And you coming in with that understanding, I feel like is something that is very disarming. And I think that a lot more people need to, and especially Christians. And I think this is, a lot of disservice done by Christian pastors and Christian priests where they don't kind of talk about this type of stuff to people to kind of disarm them. But did you, so you talked about making that connection. Is that something that you try to do when you come in with any anyone that seems like hostile in the Middle East, do you try and come in with that connection of like, hey, we both believe in this, even though I'm a Christian, I'm not going to knock your faith. I understand you where you put Muhammad, but we both still like this and we both like that. Let's connect here type of deal.
Kind of, yeah. There's a certain way to go about it. You kind of just stand there with your hands in your pockets and you just go, this Godfellow, pretty lovely, isn't he? And they'll basically go, yeah.
Sounds like you're mentioning the weather.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then every once in a while, you just say Inshallah, which means God willing. You do the little finger thing.
Yeah.
They love to see that. You do waving with your finger.
Okay.
And you say your three phrases, and they're like, "Wow, this white dude's alright." And then you can start dropping kind of the truth bombs about Mary and Christ and everything. And then it gets to a point where they just say, "So true." And they just roll with it. But if you just straight up go out and say, like, oh, Jesus, we have something in common because of Jesus, they'll kind of think you're trying to subvert them a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're kind of going up. Yeah. But if you just chill with them, they're more than fine.
So do you feel like they're a little open-minded? Like, you made the joke about not coming to Detroit. And, I don't recommend going to Detroit, Chicago, anything like that, or even part of New York City anytime soon, because I feel like it would probably be harder in current America to connect with some very tribalistic, some very politically grounded people that believe some really not true stuff going on in those countries that in those cities that have resorted to violence in America. But have you kind of considered maybe coming to any of these places and seeing if what you do would work? If you walk through, Compton, California, where the Crips and Bloods are still big, and kind of walked up on one of them and kind of tried talking to them. Like, have you considered that, or do you think your life would be more on the line there than over in the Middle East?
I would honestly say it's more dangerous in California or Detroit or some parts of Florida than it actually is in Afghanistan. Like in Afghanistan, I know I'm never going to get mugged, or I'm never going to have to pay a bribe, or no one's going to stab me. But at the same time, if I go to London, the West Coast, East Coast, or whatever, it's going to be proper dodgy. I just don't trust it at the end of the day. You go to California, they're going to stab you. You go become homeless within a week. They give you gay pills. I don't know. That's what happens in California. It's just...
You'd have to poop on the street to prove you're one of them in San Francisco.
Exactly. I've seen the poop map. I hope it just gets added instantly,
Just say no.
That's mine right there.
Yeah. Yes. Little picture submission you'll send in,
You with your face smile and thumbs up. So as you're doing all this type of stuff, are you getting pressure from the British government, American government, NATO, the UN to stop doing this type of stuff? Like, are you getting contacts saying, hey, you're kind of screwing up what we kind of do as a face of a charity to help these people? Like, you're making us look irrelevant like we actually are. Stop it. Like, are you getting in contacts with many people telling you to stop doing what you're doing?
Oh, yeah, the journalists mostly, the journalists. So the UK government, the only thing they did was, actually, no, they did two things. One thing is when my second trip was about to happen, they took me in the interview room. I was at the airport. They arrested me at the airport, took me to an interview room, took my phone, cloned my data, took DNA swabs from my mouth and my cheek and everything, and asked me if I was a terrorist, if I'm going to do some dodgy stuff in South Sudan. I was there like, oh, I'm going on a goofy holiday. They were like, oh, you're Islamic extremist. I was like, I don't have a beard, my dudes. Kind of retarded right there. I called the woman a diversity hire. I shouldn't have done that. But she was, though. I mean, I've got to admit, she couldn't even find like the money I smuggled in my bag. Like, I was trying to hide it. I was trying to hide it from anyone that was going to mug me, and they couldn't find it. I'm like, are you stupid? So, I don't think the UK government's too much of a risk to me, unless if I continue not paying my taxes. Wink, wink. I'm kidding. The only other time too, I recall bringing back about, 40 kilograms of what's it called, Taliban merch, which is, I think it's like 100 pounds. That is 100 pounds in America. So I brought back like 3 or 4 suitcases of Taliban merch. And then I laid it on the customs table and told them, "Oh, do I need to pay import fees?" And they were just pressing this red button under
someone come check this guy out.
Again, it was some woman just going, "Oh, you should have brought this. It's terrible." I'm like, "It's illegal, though." She's like, "No, you can bring it in, but we're going to visit your house to inspect it because this is really dodgy. Expect to knock at your door. No joke, we will be at your house within like a few days." They never came. I even called up the police asking them to raid my house. They never did. It's kind of insulting, but I'm not even a high-level terrorist for them.
You guys come in like, "I made it extra clean. I was ready for you."
Legit. Yeah, I was on high alert for 2 weeks. I was cleaning my room. I was like looking out the window. It's like I was waiting for guests. I even baked
you don't want to be a
brownies for them.
shameful host.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of wanted to go like, "Hey guys, look, I'm really organized. Maybe I could work for you guys." But don't. They missed the opportunity. The main thing is like the journalists. They will write articles about me, just saying, they don't use my name. That's a funny thing too. They are told to use the word Lord Miles, but they say crazy British man or crazy Brit tourist or balmy tourist.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, no wonder they're not trying to use my name. No one knows your name because you're a nobody journalist.
That is true.
Yeah, exactly. They're one of these diversity hires again. It's like when I went to South Sudan for the third time. When I popped in, I went to this little social event of this new restaurant opening. Mm-hmm. And then I saw this one lady. She was a journalist, from England. She was white, and I was like, "Well, there's no white people here. I must speak to her." So we started speaking a little bit, and she finds out who I am. She looks disgusted, and she turns, and she's like, "You shouldn't fucking be here," And then she turns again and goes, "Oh, it's nice meeting you. Bye." And I'm just laughing, and I search her up at the end because I got her name. I search her up, and she's the one that wrote 3 bad articles about me, just slandering me.
Goodness!
I just started laughing at it, and I sent her an email like a week later because she had a grammatical error within one of the articles because they're pumped out within like half an hour to get the first one. So I just sent her like a list of the issues she had, like in an article. She never responded back, I think.
Doing more work than her editor.
Yeah, true.
Have you been contacted by any of these big leftist, I don't call them corporate or mainstream, I call them leftist media, any of these big leftist media organizations to do interviews? And if you have, is your goal just to shitpost basically the whole interview and just like make it one big meme? Or would you actually try to give them a real interview, which I think is always a mistake because they're going to mischaracterize you anyway?
Yes, I think the biggest leftist media that have reached out is the Israeli military unofficially. So I've had members of the Israeli military reach out saying like, "Oh, you should come to what's it called? What's that one area that's in disputes within Israel?
Oh, the Gaza Strip.
Gaza?
Yeah, the Gaza Strip. They were like, "We could take you to Gaza, like the front lines, like where the most dangerous stuff is. We'll give you like body armor and stuff." I backed out the last second because it seemed too good to be true. I don't know why they were trying to hook me up with that. Yeah. And I think it was just an excuse to do a false flag to shoot me. That's my honest theory. Like, the guy was very kind, no hate to him. I just don't trust, like, when someone gives me a too easy to do adventure like that. It just felt really dishonest. Like, I've got some Israeli contacts that are proper solid. They're good people at the end of the day. Like medics and people that work in think tanks. Like, they've predicted Ukraine happening to the day somehow. And, I want to keep those in my circle. But the guy just saying, "Yeah, we'll take you to Gaza. Like, you have to pay us a single thing. We'll cover all the costs." I'm like, oof. I wonder why.
A little bit too good to be true.
You hear that?
A little bit too spooky.
Lord Miles only puts himself in death situations. You don't do it for him. He's the only person allowed to put himself in near-death situations, damn it.
Exactly. If the feds collapse a country around me and it's not organic, I'm just going to yell LARP if Oval Office or something.
So you talk about you've been to Ukraine, you go to all these types of places. What has been the most, kind of dodgy situation you've been in so far? Because you talk, now when I listen to your interview and I've seen some things, you talked a few times where you're like, "Yeah, I'm dead here." What has been a situation where you're like, absolutely like, there was, this was a good run. Thank you, God, getting out of here. It was fun. Bye, civilization. Like, what was that situation?
Oh yeah, this is a very clear one in my head. So I'm trying to start an Afghan gold mine in the long term. So within 1 year, I'm going to be setting up a real operation, like, African gold mine style. I'm joking, but it's it's going to be like me and like 20 locals plus my best friends plus some armed guards and stuff. Starting a proper gold mine, ship it to Pakistan and so on. So I drove about 16 hours on the way to Kandahar from Kabul. And if you look at the map, it's pretty much like a quarter across Afghanistan and on the most dodgy roads. So we started at 6 a.m. We got there around, I think it was like something like way beyond midday.
Yeah.
And when we got there, they initially hadn't seen a foreigner since the last 2 years because no one's dared been there. Yeah. So we were all just staring at me, even though I was in local clothes. I wasn't saying English words. I greeted them. They were very kind to me, but everyone was kind of looking at me like, what's this guy doing here? And I pointed the mountain that I want to mine because I know exactly what I'm looking for because reasons. And I go to this really small village that's basically just some made of mud huts. It's really, really old fashioned. It's cool. It's just really backwards,
Yeah.
And we go up to them and I go, hey, I'm interested in mining this area here. I might be buying mining rights and I want to sample some of your soil. If you wouldn't mind, I'll happily pay for some stuff for you guys for a privilege. And they go, yeah, we know we got gold here, we can't mine it, so it'd be really good to have someone who can help us mine it, and we get a cut. So I'm like, yeah, it sounds absolutely fine. And then some guys start approaching us and it becomes quite dodgy. So they're staring us down. There's some big lads, they're not part of the village. And then they bag my head with like a black bag, like a pillow bag.
Like a movie scene?
Yeah, like a proper movie scene. And that was actually the first thing that went through my head. It wasn't, I'll be bagged. I'm like, wow, it's like in the movies.
I know what Tom Cruise feels like now. Mission Impossible. Yeah, exactly. I'm Bond. I'm James Bond.
Yeah. And then I felt something cold be pressed against my forehead. And then it clicked to me, oh crap, this isn't like some sort of joke or something. I really am in Afghanistan with a barrel of a gun pointed to my head. And I heard nothing for a while, some silence. And I was like, oh, I'm already dead or something. I'm just going to realize this, whatever. And then I heard some talking and then some shouting and some more talking and so on. And then it went silent. And then the bag came off and I was like, starting to breathe again. The dust was kicked out the bag. It was a really old bag. So I was like, coughing. And they were like, oh, sorry, we thought you were someone else. There's this guy who came here like a few years ago looking to invest. And he screwed over some people. And he fit your description. We don't see many white people. We don't have a photo of him. Really sorry. There's been a mix up. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I kind of just I get up from my knees and they started getting a cloth and wiping down my knees, like dirt from my clothes for me, and like shaking my hand, and they're just being really kind. I'm like, you guys, you shouldn't have. Yeah. And it got to the point where I was like, you know what? I almost got shot for being someone else, but I wasn't. Bit dodgy, but those people are quite nice now. And once again, I have them on a group chat because the guy grows grapes and they're very lovely to eat. And I might order from him again.
So in your eyes, is what you're doing kind of showing and proving that like the whole entire charity situation, or at least 99% of it, is just bullshit? And all the people that are bleeding hearts that are saying, oh, give to this place, give to that one, and that have the money or have the influence to go down and do what you do on a bigger scale, does it kind of sit there in your eyes and go, man, everyone's full of shit? Everyone that has this whole entire thing? Or do you feel like your ability to kind of fly under the radar helps you do what you do?
Yeah, I generally think most of the charities are full of nonsense, right? So you go there and you have a look around and you so for example, there was this one camp, it's called Kakuma Refugee Camp in northern Kenya. I've been there twice now, and it's been operating since the late 90s, where it has roughly 200,000 residents and receives like something like 20 million in funding every single year, and has done since the same day it was founded. And I'm like, wow, this must be a place of hope and prosperity and future development. And you walk around, there's not a single paved road. Everyone lives in mud huts still, corrugated iron, no electricity beyond certain hours. If you're hooked up to the electricity grid, which only 5% are, I'm a policeman on a salary of I think it was like $140 a month equivalent. Get like these massive new build houses. Somehow, it's just all corruption. This money goes nowhere, and it goes to some person's pockets who manage to pull some strings. Some manipulators, those types. And you can take like 10 minutes looking around, and you can realize that something is wrong. But as soon as you bring it up, man, like people come down upon you because then they realize they'll lose all that money themselves. So it'll just stop you from saying anything. I mean, I said it anyway because I don't care, but there's no real journalists out there. It would take like, honestly, a few hours just to go there with a dedicated team and a hidden camera and expose some stuff. And then you start going around and you realize it's the same. So either you've got charity work that keeps people, on their feet, like some food, which is quite nice. Like the Taliban give away food. I've seen that. Maybe some clothes, maybe vacation or hotel stay for the night or whatever. But there's no real charities that actually build up people because there's too much corruption and people just don't know what they know. I mean, some charities just think if you give an African like an iPad and a PDF tutorial on how to program in JavaScript, they'll be, doing coding classes in like 5 years' time. It's not realistic. I think most of it are retarded.
Yeah, I remember it was a bit ago. It might have been that camp where you were talking about on Twitter, like you were basically exposing that the UN. It was like this guy. I can't exactly remember, but this guy needed something. He had requested something from the UN or from one of these places, and it's been like years. And they could have gotten to him in like an hour, and you got it for him. Exactly. It's just embarrassing.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's really simple. It's just some glasses. That's all we need.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't
in Canada, they would just say, "Hey, you want to commit suicide instead of getting glasses?" Because that's in Canada's medical theory now is just assisted suicide.
Oh, that's great. Well, why do you really have to ask consent to suicide then? Why don't you just start killing them? It's really based that way. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, honestly, they could go down that route. Oh, yeah, that's called abortion, really.
Yeah, right? Oh, my God. So you have a planned trip coming up, North Sentinel Island. Tell us why you want to go there. What's the reason to be there? Why people should know about North Sentinel Island.
Yeah, so this will be my last ever trip when this happens, but it's going to happen maybe 2 or 3 years. But when it happens, it will be big. It will be an international incident. And the reason is North Sentinel Island is officially the second most dangerous island in the world, but it's definitely the first. So it's an island off the coast of India, and it's completely inhabited by natives that have barely any contact with the outside world. They're hostile to every single outsider, where they just kill them and bury them. If you try and create diplomatic relations, they kill them. If you try and just teach them anything, kill them. If you try and give them a gift, killed. They just hate outsiders. It's like a based Republican, I guess. So I really want to go there because there was a way to get around this, and it's the most autistic plan ever. Because these people, 200 or so South Sudanese individuals are stuck in the Stone Age. They don't have any tools that can kill you apart from these spears and maybe a knife they've crafted. If I go in a full suit of medieval armor, like thick plating, I'm going to be like Iron Man to them. They'll just throw a spear or like shoot an arrow all smugly, like it's worked for their tens of thousands of years. It's going to bounce off me. Once again, they go, oh, and then just run into the forest. If I go 20 so people and they start charging at me, I'm just going to shoot fireworks at them, like little sparklers. They go flying at them. Imagine you're a native.
Gulliver's Travel style.
Exactly. Imagine you're a native and you've never seen anything substantial.
Yeah.
And then suddenly some guy just comes on doing that. Yeah, you gotta think like this guy's a god, or he's just like invincible. You're not gonna mess with him, right? Like he's shooting lightning out his hands. How does he do that? And no one's actually filmed inside the island. So we've got an account from a British explorers who forced themselves on the islands in the 1800s, saying, it's really interesting. We've got this unique architecture when it comes to building their huts and everything, and they've got weird rituals and statues and everything. I just think going in there, exploring this one bit, not even just surviving, but just properly goofing off and thriving would be amazing. So you can film all that. That'll get multi-millions of views. Their language is unknown, so there's no language that actually fits with them. There's been some accounts of people getting natives from nearby islands and trying to say some words to the North Sentinelese, but they just have no reaction. I think you have a similar language, but it's just so far distant that you just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
The only way to get onto the islands without them throwing arrows at you is to do a funny Fortnite dance with a coconut above your head. So apparently that means an offering of a coconut, which is something that's so rare on their island. Yeah, it's not native to the island. It doesn't grow there because they're retarded and haven't invented agriculture yet. So if you offer them a coconut, it's like me offering you, Dr. Pepper in the middle of a desert. You know, it's gonna be nice.
Yeah.
So these people actually will not shoot arrows at you if you give them coconuts, which is pretty funny. You know, it's the best trade of a lifetime. And the other thing is too, the British gave these North Sentinelese a bunch of gold back in the day to apologize for what they did. So I'm guessing that's somewhere, and that would just be nice to recover. You know, go back to a British museum. And because this island is in such, myth, infamy, I guess. This island's so well known. Anyone who goes there has been killed, like a missionary, a few stranded sailors, a few fishermen by accident. Yeah, they all get killed. If I went there and exchanged a modern compound bow I bought off Amazon for, say, $100 for one of their traditional handmade bows, because mine is obviously superior, right? Yeah. I trade it for them. I can sell that at an auction for like a few $1,000 to $1 million, I guarantee. It's one of a kind.
Probably more than 1,000, honestly.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'll probably say it for a tenner, starting bid. But but it will just be reducing that super scary, dangerous island to something that's actually kind of funny and goofy. And I know you'll piss so many people off. That's kind of the whole point of it. I know the Indian government will try and extradite me. It's why I'm not going to India before that. Okay. I think it's definitely worth it. Even if it gives me prison time, which I think it would, maybe 5 years, I would definitely do that for 5 years in prison.
You'd become one of the greatest explorers of all time.
Yeah.
It would officially, you would be up there with some of the conquistadors and shit like that. Like, you would officially have no choice but to put you up there.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, my plan is in the long term is I want to go down the route of, those YouTubers who blow up and then they suddenly have millions to spare overnight somehow.
Yep.
Maybe one day I can get a ton of money and then bribe everyone in India and go, yeah, he can do that now. We'll allow it. Because no one's allowed to go on this island. Yeah, the Indian government does allow it still to extradite you from the UK to India to serve 50 years in their no toilet pee-pee poo-poo jail, whatever India has. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, India's superpower by 2020. But yeah.
So
yeah, but like.
Sorry, go ahead, Miles. Go ahead. Finish out.
Yeah, I don't think I should keep talking. But I think if I bribe the right people, I can really go to this island and they can't do anything about it. That's kind of the whole point. I want to get to a point where no one can stop me. They just go, oh, it's Miles. He's just causing international incidents. Yeah, just let him do his thing. Yeah. We did have this saying in school, in university, and it was written on a board because every one of my flatmates believed it. And it was, we can't negotiate or reason with Miles. All we can do is encourage him.
So, one thing, when that goes on, all me and David are going to be thinking is, at least he's not American. For once, it's not an American going doing something, creating an issue, because it's always the Americans doing something, fucking it up, creating an issue. So one thing I do have to ask, because, big thing with the leftist theory right now is, the noble savage, right? A Rousseauian, Hegelian theory where, the noble savage is a big deal. And they're trying to push us back into what you're describing with North Sentinel. They want us all to go back to dealing with sticks and stones. We don't have a wheel yet. We have to make it out of wood or rock again. They want us to go back and not have any modern amenities unless we're up in the elite class with them. The plebes will have nothing. They'll have everything, a la communist Russia. But you've had a lot of travels. You've seen a lot of places, like you said, legitimate mud huts. Now, I think us in the West, we've grown up on modern amenities. Our poor have grown up on modern amenities. We don't know what poor is. You've seen legitimate poor. You've seen stick huts held up by hair being tied, like, things like that with no electricity. They don't even, that's something they have to travel into the city for. Maybe they see a light when they go to market. Like, that's the most they get. How could these people benefit from getting fossil fuels into their lives? Because I feel like that's been pushed so much. And if you see, you see the book, I have Alex Epstein's book, Fossil Future, up here. Just from your perspective, like, what would it do if we could get just a 0.01% of the fossil fuel usage we have in the West into some of the places that you have been? How could it change so many of these people's lives?
Oh, it would massively help them. So those cringe stories you always see on adverts saying this boy walks 20 miles a day to get water.
Yep.
Well, here's the thing: they can actually fill their U-Hauls with petrol, gas, and they can actually drive to where the water is and actually live there now. So it's really genius. I don't know. Jokes aside, they can do basic things like actually go to school. They can transport items. They can build infrastructure, because you need petroleum and everything to build roads, right? For the tarmac and everything. So you can basically build modern stuff. And if you're right wing, you'll be excellent, because better living conditions in certain places means less immigration, right? So overall, you make everyone's lives a little bit happier, and then you can obviously create a more stable society. These people would be happy. They can get to modern medicine, modern hospitals with the infrastructure that can be set up through petroleum and natural resources. Honestly, I think that's what we need. It's what's lifted out billions out of poverty in China and stuff like that, because they started utilizing their resources. That's why North Korea sucks for the moment, because they can't process any of the goods they have. If you want to live like an impoverished person, and that's what the government wants to do to us, even if we just have sticks and stones, I think a stick and a stone is still enough to bash in like Bill Gates' skull if I need to. You know what I mean? Like, I can still do that. So the end
if it gets close enough.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have a request for you. Since you are a man of pilgrimages and I am one of those pansies that don't go and do the things that I wish I could do. You are the guy. Can you please go in to the Scandinavian countries and just prove how hard it is to become a citizen in any of them, and to prove how homogenous they try to be? Because we're all told in the West, oh, the Scandinavian nations, they're the ones that, well, now, Klaus Schwab is saying China because the mask is coming off, right? But for the most part, we've been told, the Scandinavian nations, they do socialism perfectly. And it's like, you look at it and it's like, they lose money every year. It's minuscule, but they do. But also, because they're all white. It's because the Scandinavian nations are all Scandinavian. And the country Sweden, who started, not Sweden, I think it was Sweden, started letting in a massive amount of refugees, is now trying to kick them all out because they have screwed up the nicest that they had. So can you go on a mission to try and get citizenship into all the Scandinavian nations and kind of record how long it takes you to get this citizenship? Because I feel like I would love that, yes. As well as all your other travels, you can kind of prove that I am a white Westerner and these Scandinavian nations aren't racist by color. They just don't want anybody that's not from their nation there. They hate everybody else because in order to keep up their grift of being a socialist nation, they need to have people that have the same exact culture and think exactly like them. Can you make that a mission?
Exactly, yes. Easily. So, yeah, it'll be a multi-year-long video because the process is so difficult from what I've seen. So I've done some shopping for second citizenships, of course. And when you see this process you have to go through, it's so difficult. And even for an immigrant, they can't pronounce half the words that Scandinavians use. Their language is crazy. And then they've got a million different things. So they're never going to integrate. They take them in just to say, you can work in that country, you're never going to be a citizen. Yeah. And maybe there's one or two kebab shops in the Scandinavian nations that I've seen, unfortunately. And they're not even good kebabs, so, not even the best immigrants. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Gosh, yes. But... But at the same time, it's so good that you can't get easy citizenship sometimes. It just keeps all these people out.
Yeah. So that's a mission that I want you to do. It's going to be I don't know, it might be life-threatening at some point if you push hard enough because they don't want people there. So before we wrap up, where are the next places planned? Where can we see you risking your life in the next, months, weeks, years? Where's the next places planned for you to go?
I've got a list, and the list is about 30 places long in priority, but I'm going to skip to the big ones in the next, I think it's be the next year or something. And this is in order, so I'm going to go to an island in Brazil that has a lot of snakes. I won't exaggerate on that one, but
that island.
Yeah, it's said to be the most dangerous island in the world. Pretty much, yeah. So there's a plan with that. It might involve a suit of armor as well, which is something snakes can't bite through. Yeah. You don't tell the Brazilian Navy anytime soon, but yeah. That's happening after Christmas, I believe. Okay. I might go to Ukraine in about 3 or 4 days. I'll just fly to Poland, take the train into the front lines, and hang out with a few soldiers that have reached out to me. They seem like chill dudes. I'll bring them some beers, to say, good, decent work, lads, killing people. Enjoy a cold one if you want.
Yeah, why not?
It's the least I can do. Could be some good footage. Mm-hmm. I met up with a quite famous individual today. That'll be unveiled in about 3 days. Okay. But I can't tell you who he is. But he's a top G.
Okay,
that's you get what I mean.
Okay.
There you go.
Yes,
there you go.
Exactly. Yeah, real top G. What else too? Oh yes. So after that island that involves snakes, that isn't all called Snake Island. Wink, wink. I'll go back to Afghanistan to buy up some Taliban merch to resell. But whilst I'm there, I'll shoot. Thank you. I'll shoot the bazooka.
I was interested in getting either some stuff from you or the Hello Kitty Kabul shirts from Callum, because those are amazing shirts.
We were walking around the market and Callum just said, "Oh, drip," and I was like, "What is
this?" That's amazing.
Yeah, he even did the soy face. So did I. It was great. Oh, such a good T-shirt. Yeah, apparently it was a custom made order. Limited order, and they just never collected on like some of it, and that was the remaining part of it, so it's like limited edition as well. But I want to shoot a bazooka at a Soviet tank, so I went to my guy in Afghanistan, one of my guys, and I was like, "Oh, hello brother, how are you?" He's like, "Very good brother. I want to shoot a bazooka at a tank," and he goes, "It could be done, brother. It'll be
that's awesome.
Like, it'll be like $800 for like the ride, the day out, the guy organizing it, his payment, my payment, the bazooka, the tank itself, like the permits." I'm like, $800 for all that? He's like, "Is it too much?" I was like, "No, I can do that. There'll be a million view YouTube video right there."
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be an old Soviet tank, so it's not going to be sadly a working one, but it could be fun. I'll see what string. Yeah, exactly. And plus, I can still say, "Shalom, my niggas," to the Taliban. And then after that, there's a few places. So if you type in on Google Alert Canada, there's a research base that's right on the north of those islands on the north of Canada. You know when you see those islands dotted on top of Canada? You have no idea what goes on there. No one really does. The northernmost settlement in the world is that place called Alert in Canada. And it's right on the edge of going onto the North Pole. Yeah, it's middle of nowhere. There's a Tim Hortons. It's 500 miles from a real of an airport. There's a Tim Hortons.
What the hell?
Yeah, this little. It's a military base.
Yeah,
it's a military base where they monitor incoming nuclear missiles from Russia if they launch. Basically, so it's like an advanced alert station.
Yeah.
And I emailed the Canadian government going, "Oh, hi there. Can I pop down? I know it's like 500 miles of walking through, the frozen wasteland that is the Arctic Circle, but I'll bring some supplies and some friends. Pretty please." And he said, "No." And I emailed back saying, "But is there a fence though?" And he's never emailed back, so I think it's explicit. I think it's a explicit permission allowing me to go. I honestly will. At some point when I got the logistics down, just funding in the long term. And there's one of a Headless Valley in Canada. If you don't know about that, about 20 people have died, been decapitated mysteriously, apparently by an uncontacted tribe. Because if you've entered this valley, that's really hard to get into. These people haven't been contacted; they'll just execute any foreigners. There's a really good video on it online. If you type in Headless Valley on YouTube. And then there's other places I want to go to. I want to go to South Central Island, next to North Central Island. It's about 20 miles away. and it's a little bit smaller. You can just chill on there. So I just want to laugh as the North Sentinelese, get into their mindset, you know?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
A little prep work.
Exactly. And do you guys know what I can't pronounce his name? Watervoltist history? Like the
No, I don't think so.
he's a history YouTuber, and he makes like hour-long videos talking about history and stuff. He's gone quite big because you're a history major, mate. So I think
Gotta look him up.
Yeah. What was it? What if all list? I can't say it ever.
What if?
Yeah. What if all list? I think if you saw one of his videos, you might recognize it.
Okay.
But he's coming with me on a trip. He's a big YouTuber. You would honestly love him.
He came up, so.
He came up?
There's
Yeah. Cool. What if all? Yeah. Okay.
We'll David will send it. We'll do our research on him.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, he's a good man, honestly. So there's a border between Afghanistan and China, which most people don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
No one's crossed it since 1947. One photo exists of it. So I'm going to put a team together of 5 people, which I've got so far. We're going to hike about 100 miles each way. Plot a little flag on top of this border, which is like 4,700 feet up. So it's really high up border.
Yeah.
And apparently tonight is smuggling route too, so we're going to have to be armed. So we're going to have to buy weapons in Afghanistan and then just drive, 500 miles to this area.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be a really fun trip. I don't know. I think we're just going to cause an international incident. Yeah.
So that, I guess that sums up this podcast. That sums up Lord Miles.
Yeah.
Let's go cause international incidents. And the next time you see, your leftist media putting something up, or even some conservative media, international incident, look for Lord Miles or crazy British tourist up there, depending on which side you're getting it from, because more than likely he will be the one causing it. Miles, really appreciate you coming on the show. This was
great.
Lots of fun, dude.
Thank you, man. I do appreciate it. I like being the Sam Hyde of travel,
Just a little bit crazy.
You got to challenge Hassan to a boxing match now.
You do, yeah. Here's the thing: you could actually go find Hassan, and you're the guy that can actually go do it. Sam Hyde just won't, because he will. I'm not going to say he won't, but I don't think he's wanting to do that.
You just won't get sued,
you're not afraid of that. You're like, I take on governments, I'll take on you. So yeah, that's gonna be your new goal. You should find Hassan everywhere he goes and just airdrop his location to Sam. But again, he's Lord Miles Routledge. He is, at this point, just a renowned world traveler, goes into the most dangerous places that you can think of and a bunch that you don't even know of, and just goes in there, talks to the people as if they're people, experiences the danger that you only dream of, and is still here kicking for now. So it was such a good time having you. Dave, do you have anything else you want to say before we close out?
No, this has been incredible. I thoroughly enjoy hearing it from the horse's mouth himself. I have found, since the Kabul stuff popped off and I found out about what was going on with you there, I've been following you at least slightly every so often, just popping back in okay, he's doing this now. Okay, he's homeless in New York City for a week for some reason. That's interesting. You're going and you're just taking on these challenges, and I love witnessing it happen, especially because, like Alex said, a lot of us don't do it for whatever reason. And you do, whether you think that's retardation or just courage, doesn't matter. It's a lot of fun to just see that happen and see someone out just go and live life, because that doesn't happen a lot these days. So it's enjoying to witness.
Thank you. Live, love, laugh. So true.
Live, love, laugh. Oh my God. You are a walking epitome of live, love, laugh with an AK-47 in your arms. Again, thank you so much for coming on. This was the Alex Cuesta Show. That's Lord Miles Routledge. I really appreciate you jumping on the show. Anyone that enjoyed it, please go give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars. Spread this word of mouth. Find us on social media at the Alex Cuesta Show. Hope you enjoyed this special Sunday edition. Everybody, so long.